record have started.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just check, are you on the call?
Yep.
Okay, it was a little bit of a hitch in the getting the call started. So now on, and just going to check. I see like Nancy Beacom in North Platte. Are you on the call? Okay, there you are, Nancy. Thanks. I just saw your name on the list. I wanted to make sure I was getting the right people on the call and on the web. So thanks, Nancy. We have any problems joining the webinar portion. I had up, and you should be seeing the opening slide. All right, hearing you good. Okay, we'll give since there was a kind of a later change in the webinar number and link. I'm going to give just a little bit of extra time so if anybody has any issues, they can contact their local side director and get the updated link. I do see quite a few people that looks like they are finding their way to this link. QSI directors, middle affiliate QSI directors, just make sure that you have the updated information from the updated calendar request if anybody that your states asks for that they can't join the number. So it should be the number ending in 1898 is the correct information. So the phone number ends in 1898, and it is a different login for the webinar as well. With this change so that we can ensure that this would be recorded properly for today's call so they could be shared later. We've had a lot of requests after the first call to make sure that we can record this. So also there should be more room available for this meeting. We have an issue last time where we were filling up and getting a little plugged up, so we've added some more space to this one too. So hopefully we won't have those problems this time. So quite 2 o'clock yet. This is the Midwest Affiliate Get With the Guidelines Coronary Artery Disease monthly users call. So thank you for joining us again today. This is our second call. And I don't, like I usually do on conference calls, which is okay, because I think that gets a little annoying anyhow. But as as more people join, I'll just let you know that we are going to get started here in just a minute. We should be listening to this webinar on your phone and viewing the slides via the link sent in the calendar request. So there are slides for this call you would view separately. We will get started in just a couple of minutes. I want to make sure that everyone has plenty of time to join and figure out the new conference link. Anybody having any problems joining the webinar? No. Excellent. Give it a few more minutes. So you're getting any emails from any of your states not being able to join?
Yeah, this is Greg. I am not.
Okay.
Yep.
I came online, Jackie.
Hello?
No email.
Okay. 2 minutes after, I think we'll go ahead and get started. If everyone can remember to mute your lines on your end so that we don't have any background noise, I would appreciate it. Again, this is the second Midwest Affiliate Get With the Guidelines Coronary Artery Disease, or CAD, call, month's call. This call is focused on our current Get With the Guideline CAD users for all of our Midwest Affiliate states, and giving you a resource for information, so how to use the tool, what to be working on now within the tool, answer your questions. We really want this call to be interactive. Your Midwest Affiliate Get With the Guidelines CAD team is myself. I'm based out of South Dakota and cover hospitals in South Dakota and Nebraska. Bergen, who is located in Iowa, and she covers hospitals in Iowa and one hospital in Illinois, and then Jackie, and she is located in Chicago and covers our Illinois hospitals. And also on the call with you today will be probably most, if not all, of the QSI directors from all of the other states in the Midwest Affiliate. You have them already. Chime in quickly. Greg Poe out of Indiana and Robin out of Missouri. Just know that it represents your full QSI team. And if you have any questions, if you send of us of your Midwest Affiliate Get With the Guidelines CAD team any questions from the webinar or before or after, make sure that your local QSI directors from your state are included in those questions and answers. We want this call to be very interactive as we continue to do these users calls. We would like users to be able to share experiences on this call. If you have a question or if you have a problem, it's likely somebody in another state also has the same question or problem. So we encourage you to either send questions ahead of time or go ahead and feel free to ask questions during the QA sessions on these calls, which we'll have one at the end of this. So start out by showing where we're at with Get With the Guidelines CAD adoption. Obviously, we're about 9 months into Get With the Guidelines CAD, our AMI registry for the American Heart Association. We currently have 431 hospitals nationally utilizing Get With the Guidelines CAD, and we have 77 hospitals all utilizing it in our Midwest Affiliate states. So you can see the map there of hospitals that are utilizing our Get With the Guidelines tool. Guidelines CAD is the only way to participate in Mission Lifeline. It is the Mission Lifeline data tool. We really appreciate all of those states, all of those hospitals in those states that are utilizing the tool to continue to be part of Mission Lifeline system of care for STEMI and STEMI. So today, I'm going to turn this over to Katie Bergen, and she is going to run through once again a little bit of the historic data upload process. This is one of those the top of everyone's mind right now. If you're using Get With the Guidelines CAD, have you done the historic data upload? Have you received your clean data? Have you cleaned up your data? All of those things are kind of a top for Get With the Guidelines CAD users right now. So this is a repeat, or will be somewhat of a repeat. I think you can expect that from time to time on these calls, that we will repeat items because they're high importance, so we're re-emphasizing them. So Katie will walk through this, and then also talk through some of the identified ways to correct some of the data that we've seen so far as it comes over from historic data upload. So take it away, Katie.
Thanks, Gary. So again, we did this on the last call, so I'll just kind of try to hit some high points here, not go into too much detail. So I do appreciate if you've already done this bearing with us here. But again, as Gary said, this is an extremely important and valuable thing to be able to do, so you can get all of that action data from 1/1/2015 present day. So the one-time upload, free. It will cover, those 3+ years worth of data will come into CAD for you. So the whole process of doing this load should take no more than 20 minutes, and you will need to have a computer where you have access to Action and Excel. What you'll do is you need to pull 2 files out of Action directly. Can help you with that, but just know if you are using a vendor, just contact your QSI director as well. There's a couple implications, specifically with Lumetics, Apollo. If you're using them, you do need to change some functionality, to turn on your data functionality. So be aware of that time is really of the essence here, because there could be a couple steps you need to do before you're able to complete this upload. So I'm not going to go through all these details here, but what you'll ultimately do is be pulling 2 files out of Action, and you'll be saving them in CSV, that comma delimited format, so that you can do, then you'll just do 2 more steps. You'll have to format each file, and then we'll be emailing them off. So next slide. What you'll do is, once you have those 2 files pulled out of Action and saved, you'll open up a blank worksheet. This is for that final formatting of and file 2. You'll go into the data ribbon, and you'll be importing those from text or CSV, as you see there. Next slide. And go through just a 3-step process, again, for each of these files. You'll be importing, you'll go through the text import wizard, change just a couple settings that are indicated here, and then you should have those files pretty ready to go. And then slide. Again, some more details here, but you'll get those imported into those blank Excel worksheets. A couple things to note is that whatever the NCDR patient ID is in that file, that will be what comes over as your Get With Guidelines CAD patient ID. It's my understanding that NCDR ID is kind of auto-populated. It's not something that each hospital necessarily chose or has any, record of what that necessarily means. You have the ability to, I've worked with some hospitals that have that other ID column with something that's more meaningful to them over time. So what hospitals have chosen to do is to copy the other ID column and paste it over the NCDR patient ID, knowing, again, that whatever number is in that NCDR patient ID column, that's the number that will go in to Get With the Guidelines. So some hospitals, unfortunately, didn't put anything in that other ID or have some blanks. It's only kind of sporadically filled out. So in those cases, it's really just your best bet to leave the NCDR patient ID as what the ID will be. What you should be aware that to do is that first extract, so the file number 1 that you pull, will have 5 columns that has patient identifiable data. It's got first, middle name, last name, social security number, and HIC number. So you need to delete the data from those 5 columns. You have to always leave the headers, so it matches up for the coding and for the data upload. You don't want to delete the entire column. You just want to delete all of the data that's within that column underneath the headers. First extract, those 5 columns, that second extract will just have 3 columns. So it's the same line by line. It's just additional information. It doesn't all fit, if you will, in that first extract. So there's 2 extracts. Line 10 in extract 1 is the same patient as line 10 in extract 2. So you'll just need to delete the first name, middle name, and last name. Extract 2, the social and the HIC number are not within that extract. So next slide, Carrie. Just that once you save those files, you'll save the first one as extract 1 final, something like that, in a place that you can easily access it, because you'll be emailing it off right down here. That second one you save as extract 2 final, and then again making sure that every time you save it, it's in the CSV format. That's important for them to be able to upload it. One thing, so we've seen a couple errors come through when people have emailed this off to IQ or Quintiles, our technology vendor. The most common error that I've seen or heard is that the headers don't match up. They don't match up line for line, but those first 7 headers on extract 1 and extract 2, they match exactly. So if you follow the instructions step by step, they match exactly. There shouldn't be anything you need to do, but there's been just kind of a couple anomalies that have come through that that would be the first place I would ensure that you're just double checking when you have 1 up next to number 2. Just look at those first 7 columns and make sure that they're matching. You didn't accidentally delete a whole column or anything like that for any of those that you were editing. Once you have those 2 files saved, you will securely email both files to that provided address. I want to include 3 pieces of information: your hospital name and location, the dates of the data that you're uploading, so 1/1/15 through, day. If you've already been entering into Get With the Guidelines manually, you will just want to take that into consideration when you're pulling those files from Action, just so there's not significant overlap. Ideally, there's no overlap, but make sure that, if you potentially started in July, you're only pulling data through, to where it matches up from when you started entering. Just be aware that it does take 3 to 5 business days to process that request. Once you email your files off to the email address, you will not receive confirmation, we've received your email. You will receive an email if there's any type of error, in which I would suggest just forwarding that on to your QSI director, and we can, one of us on the team will be able to handle that most likely, or kind of help you along with that. And otherwise, if there's no errors, it takes about 3 to 5 business days, and you should see your data that's related in CAD, at which time you'll also get an email saying your data has now been uploaded, please review it, if it looks good to you. I would suggest, what most hospitals have been doing to determine if it looks good is just a general check. If you had about 300 patients uploaded, does it seem like there's 300 patients in CAD? You can run your reports, which Gary will be walking through here. Make sure there's nothing that looks significantly off or concerning to you, but we've seen great success, over the many uploads that have been done. And any error messages, your QSI director, we can get it directly to the CAD team if we need, and we'll get it taken care of. If you use the historic data upload, all of the slide pretty much just indicates as soon as possible. So if, at this point, I say no later than probably the end of next week. Do you really want to get this process started? Just with the considerations that there could be potentially an error you're dealing with in trying to get that cleaned up to get the data uploaded. And once it's uploaded, this next step that I'll be going through, there's a couple pieces that we know that we'll need to clean up on the NSTEMI side. And then in addition to that, your director will be kind of reviewing your data, looking at your fallouts, and potentially asking you to look to kind of double-check data, double-check your patient charts to see if there's any areas. You're right below an achievement measure, for example. They might say, could you look at these patients and see if, there's anything that was possibly incorrectly documented, or anything that we can do to clean that chart up. So again, we just need that time to allow for the data reconciliation and review, which we'll be doing over the next several weeks, and just make sure you have time and that nobody's rushed in that. So the next slide will just kind of go over this next part, what we need to do on the NSTEMI side to clean up that historic data. So it is a huge benefit that we're getting all of this data over, one time for free. Nobody has to go back enter patients from scratch. There are, unfortunately, 2 measures on the NSTEMI side that we know there are a couple issues with. So the dual antiplatelet at discharge, the contraindications did not come over from Action into Get With the Guidelines CAD. So what we're seeing is you have a patient where you have 1 antiplatelet prescribed and the others were contraindicated. That patient will look like they're falling out in Get With the Guidelines CAD, and they're not meeting the measure because contraindications are blank. So this one is maybe a little more labor intensive, unfortunately. The number of patients should be smaller, but what we'll be asking you to do for 2017 is to go back and look at these patients, look at these patient charts, and be able to mark either if they did get a second antiplatelet, or if the other contraindicated, you just mark contraindicated, contraindicated down the line and save that patient. The second issue that we know, so this one, you'll probably have more patients that fall into this measure, but it's a much, I would say, easier fix. You don't have to reference the patient chart. It's just going back into each within CAD and just clicking a button, clicking save. So this one, again, a few more patients will be involved, but I have to clean up on this one is a lot quicker. And again, I've worked with a few hospitals that have already done this NSTEMI cleanup, and while it, looking at your reports could seem a little overwhelming at the number, it's been pretty quick. They've all been able to take care of it and then have been able to meet the measures. So the second one, the evaluation of left ventricular systolic function, when the value is uploaded into Get with the Guidelines CAD, you'll just need to check this admission box in order to complete that measure. Those pieces, if you enter a left ventricular systolic function into Action, kind of behind the scenes, it knows it's on this admission, but those are separate pieces in CAD, if that makes sense. So you might have a 35 in there for your value. CAD has a blank. It needs to know that it was on this admission. So we just need to tie those two elements together to complete that. So I'll go through these briefly for you here. Next slide, Gary. So when you run, and again, Gary will go over the report, how to run those reports and what that looks like, but you'll run your NSTEMI measures, configurable measures report through your reporting functionality. And so here's an example of what you might see right after the upload. So we're looking at this green bar, which is the dual antiplatelet therapy. You need to be at least 65% achievement for that. And then what would be this yellow bar is the evaluation of left ventricular systolic function. That needs to be at 85%. So obviously you can see we have some cleanup to do here. So next slide. So drill down into that dual antiplatelet therapy at discharge. You would go into that configurable measure report functionality. You're looking annually at 2017. And then you will click on the NSTEMI measure, the dual antiplatelet therapy at discharge. And really important, that format, instead of just looking at the bar chart, that doesn't give you that specific patient detail. You want to look at the patient records report for the format, and then you'll generate that report. Next slide. Here's an example of what that report would look like. Off to the far left, what would be to the left of this included in results would be your patient ID. I did not include that in this just because it was already tight on space. We would have to black those out as in this example, but what those patient IDs have, they're hyperlinked, so you'd be able to click on any patient and immediately in another window it would open up their patient management tool, their record within CAD, so you could do that edit, save it, then you can just have that chart and move on to the next one. So this would be kind of the master report that you're working from. You would just click the name, click the patient ID, click this and save it, go on down the line. So what you would do when you generate this patient record report, number one, would be to filter this. So you would click on in numerator, because right off that it's just going to go chronologically. But if you click in numerator, then it will pull all of your no's to the top. So you'll see that this patient is included in the report. Included in results is this first column, which means they're in the denominator, the numerator. So these are your fallouts. And, this next column, there's no exceptions. There's no reason, they're just fallouts. So come over here to the right side, you can see this first patient was prescribed, aspirin, but they prescribed anything else, and no contraindications were noted. The second doesn't look like they've received anything. And you can just see that common theme down the line. So this is where, again, it's a smaller number of patients. I understand both of these are, it's going to be a little bit of work to get done. And this one is smaller, but you will need to go into that patient chart just to cross-reference and determine if they have contraindications or potentially another antiplatelet prescribed. So next slide. Again, ensure that you sort that patient record. You want to click, you can sort any of those columns, but what we find most easy really is just to click on the in numerator to push all those no's to the top. I'm going to check against the patient record. And then if you're able to mark a patient that they are contraindicated to everything that aren't prescribed, that patient will then be excluded. So they'll fall out of the denominator, the numerator, so they just won't even be counted in that measure. So that's a good thing to be able to do. But if you're able to find another antiplatelet that was prescribed, then that patient will stay in the denominator and move to the numerator and be able to meet that measure. And reminder, when clicking on a patient ID, a new window with their CAD record will open, so you can just do that easy toggling. And then make sure that you're hitting submit on the patient record to save any changes that you do make. Next slide. This is what that dual antiplatelet therapy would look like. So you'll want to click on the discharge tab of the patient record in with the Guidelines CAD. I'll check the patient the medical record, and then if the contraindications exist or a second drug was prescribed, you'll just add that on down the line. You'll see where you can add all of that information in here. And this slide. The drill the left ventricular systolic function. Again, you'll use that configurable measure report. Make sure that you're looking annually, all of 2017. And then on the end-STEMI side, you'll have that proper report that you'll pull up, the evaluation of systolic function, and the patient records format. You can see and really do the drill down. The next slide. Another type of report that comes up. What I think on this one is easiest is to first sort your LVF assessment. So click on this column off to the far right. That will give you all of these, anything with a number will then push to the top. After you do that, go over and click in numerator. So then what you'll be seeing, everything at the top will be your files that do have an LVF assessment. So those will be the ones you'll want to address. So you'll see then in this far right column, the LVF assessment obtained, there it's empty. Any patient that has a number in F assessment, so in the column right next to this, anyone that has a number in it and not in the numerator, that's where you need to enter the chart and click that the LV function was obtained on this admission. The next slide. So I think I just hit all of that. So you'll find all the patients with the LVF assessment filled out that are not in the numerator. You'll do the same thing that you did with the dual antiplatelet therapy patients, is you'll click the patient ID. The chart will enter in a smaller window, or will open in a smaller window. This is under the hospitalization tab at the very bottom. You'll click obtained on the submission, save the record. So this one is really just, really a couple clicks per chart. Should be able to knock this one out pretty quickly, but again, we'll just be transparent in letting you know this will probably be a larger number of patients for you to sort through. So next slide. I'll give you a picture of what this looks like. So this is the bottom of the hospitalization tab within the patient record in CAD. So here's a good example of a patient. They do have an LVF assessment. So if there's value in there, then you'll just need to click this mission. At the bottom, hit submit. So it's as easy as that, but you'll just need to go back and forth and do that on all of those patients that are in the denominator but are not in the numerator. And then eventually you'll work your way down that list, and you'll see in this red rectangle is where you can see the example of the true fallouts are. So you can see there's a handful of patients here that they're not in the numerator. They are included in the results, which means they are in the denominator. There's exceptions, and they do not have an LVF assessment. And there's no reason why, an acceptable reason would be, was obtained here, will be, as planned for the future, anything like that. But these are where your real fallouts would be. So we would expect on this, if they fix 95 records and they've got these left over, they're still going to be at the measurement level of at least 80%, but these are the true ones that don't need to because they just weren't done. For improvement. Next slide. On to Gary.
Thanks, that's great. Anybody have questions for Katie on those two items in particular? And again, this is something that we would suggest everyone gets their historical data upload done with their action data and start running those two reports on the end-STEMI side. We haven't seen these issues with anything across the board with STEMI, but we are seeing those two particular issues with end-STEMI, which will affect your end-STEMI awards for your 2017 data. Any questions on that?
Hey, I have a question. I'm out in North Platte. This is Nancy. And on your LV assessment, how do you document if say the patient expired in the cath lab or was transferred out and never had an LV assessment? There's nothing there to mark.
If the patient's expired, you can review that at some point. But if a patient's expired, for example, they will fall into they will not be in that measure for numerator or denominator. There's a few things that they'll not be included at all. So that we can show you, we can send you some screenshots of how to find the measures. I can see how those measures are all calculated, but those are good examples, Nancy, that are both things that would push that patient out of the measure in completely.
Oh, thank you.
That is documented elsewhere in the record that the patient was deceased, and it's that up, and then it does not include them in that measure. Then is that are deceased, Nancy? That you mark deceased elsewhere in the chart, and they are showing up as included, then you let us know. We could review that and see what's going on.
One other thing that I've ran across actually today, because I had to go in on 184 charts that they came over, but not all of the data came with it. So I have to go in and fill in all the data that didn't come. And I have two that were local patients, and when I clicked on complete, it said that they were past the time limit from one facility to the next when they never actually came from a different facility.
Okay, we'll review those individually and see what's going on with those, Nancy. We'll hook up sometime and see what's pulling from there.
Okay. Yeah, I went back.
Good questions, though.
Further, and I still couldn't see what I had marked to cause that. So, okay, thanks.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that one yet, Nancy. So thanks. We'll keep an eye out for that one, and you and I can through those particular charts and see what's going on with that. Any other comments? We really want this call to be interactive because some of those things that Nancy in North Platte is seeing, somebody else may be seeing too, and or not seeing, and may see later. So we want to bring those issues out in the call so that everyone can hear the problems and answers. Okay, hearing none, I will move on to awards. So I want to go through, and obviously we are getting into award season for achievement awards for Mission Lifeline STEMI and STEMI. So we want to make sure that everyone is taking a look at their data. QSI directors from each of your areas will be looking at your data as well, and as Katie had mentioned, kind of taking a look to see if there's any that are real close, within a couple of percentage points. Do you need to go back in and evaluate individual patients to see why they were fallout? So I'll talk about that. I'll actually also ask one of the hospitals that just went through this with Katie and I to talk just briefly about her experience. Hopefully, Grantham, Katie got a hold of you and let you know that I was going to do that. But if not, I'll still give you a few minutes to prepare for that. I'm not asking you quite yet.
Thanks, Terry.
That's okay. Terry's always ready for a question. So, but I'll ask you a question here in a little bit, Terry. We want to go through how to review your data, make sure everyone understands how to run your measure reports, and take a look for your fallouts, potential fallouts, and if there's any need to correct those, how to do that the easiest way. Also, we want to make sure that everyone knows how to, in this particular first iteration of Get With The Guidelines CAD and with all of this transfer data from action, it's not straightforward to see how many patients you have in either STEMI or NSTEMI to meet the minimum number of patients. So we want to run through how we are calculating that for this year. I just want to make sure that everyone understands this will not be an ongoing manual calculation. It should not be this difficult or this steps in the future. But with this transferred over data, there obviously are going to be little hiccups here and there. Just quickly reviewing the recognition measures, and where I want to in here is for STEMI receiving center measures, you must have at least an average of 9 patients in your records per quarter. For this particular year, remember that we're looking for anywhere between 1 and 4 quarters, but whatever number of quarters of data you upload, that's what will be evaluated. So if you upload all of 2017, all of 2017, all 4 quarters will be evaluated. If you only upload 2, 2 will be evaluated. For this year and for 2017, 2018 awards only, because of the transfer of data and the transition from CAD to CAD, you will need 1 quarter of achieved data to maintain your award status, or 2 quarters to go up. So if you were a gold and you only put in 1 quarter and you maintain the measures, you will maintain gold. If you were a silver and you put in at least 2 quarters of data and achieve the measures in those 2 quarters, you will achieve gold. And that is, again, an average, based on an average of 9 STEMIs per quarter. So if you have 10 in 1 quarter and in another, you're still good. In previous years, it was at least 9. Now it is an average of 9. So it should help a few of the hospitals that are a little bit smaller volume and sometimes get 11 and sometimes get 7. So we wanted to make sure we were including everybody in that. So it is an average for STEMI, and must have at least 9 STEMI records in the achievement quarter. So if you only put in 1 quarter of data or 2 quarters of data, you need to have that 1 quarter must have at least that 9. NSTEMI, it's a minimum of 36 NSTEMI records per calendar year, and it must have at least 9 STEMI records in the quarter to achieve that 1 quarter of achievement. So if you're only looking at 1 quarter of achievement, for instance, for a bronze award, that particular quarter must have that minimum of 9. For STEMI, you must achieve 75% or greater on all STEMI measures, with the composite score being above 85%. NSTEMI must achieve a score of 65% on the dual antiplatelet therapy measure in particular, and 85 on all of the rest of them. This is sent out several times. I'm sure you've all seen it, but there is a change in the login coming. The QI.login, whatever it starts QI.login, will be going away, and you'll need to access Get With The Guidelines CAD and all of the other modules through heart.org/quality registry login. And that will take you to all of the registries, including artery disease, where you can click and get in there. We've logged in now, and we're taking you to the community page where we will start the process of pulling reports to review your for achievement measures. So you click in your reports button here. Your legend to know where you're at. So this is where you would add a new patient. This is where you would review patients. This is where you will click for reports, and this is your resources where you have information, for instance, the definitions. The reports, we'll click there, and we'll pull up. This will bring you another page and gives you the report manual. We're going to configure measure reports. He was showing the same page earlier. So from configurable measure reports, we'll choose monthly. You can go annually. I should put this on my example. Difficult for us to do this live because our training environment is not as robust. So we have to do this with screenshots. But monthly aggregated, and choose all your months, or annually and then just choose all of 2017. You'll select your measure in CAD and it's My Hospital. So when you click on Select Measure, you're going to want to click on STEMI Receiving Measures if you are a receiving center, if you're looking at your STEMI Achievement Receiving Center Awards. So here's the proper way to look at it now. There must have been an extra slide I left in there. Sorry about that. Annually 2017 STEMI Receiving Measures. We're going to first look at the bar chart format, and we're just looking at just My Hospital. This is something that, just a kind of a tip that I like to do. I like to choose similar measures on the same graph. You don't have to do that, but I'll show you what it looks like when you do. Similar measures on the same graph, you get this right off the bat, which is all of the achievement of measures on one graph, and then a legend that shows you where you're at for each of those. So primary PCI less than or equal to 90. Above 90% here, Mission Lifeline FMC to primary PCI less than or equal to 90. Just a little above, and so on. So you can see a legend, color-coded legend down here, and across the board, each of those measures. This is the measure here. arrival at first facility to primary PCI less than or equal to 120 minutes. That's the plus measure. Again, this also has to be at that 75 mark.
What did he do?
So, somebody not on mute. If everyone would please check your mute buttons. I'm hearing somebody in the background talking.
That was the guideline for coronary artery disease data submission.
Yep, listening to. So let's go ahead and go on mute if you're hearing talk, and you double check that you're on mute, please. Because we're hearing some people talking in the background. Again, this plus measure, you can see that this particular hospital will take a look at this and see that they are below the achievement level for a plus measure. So this would indicate that they need to start digging this a little bit. As you hold down this same screen below the graphs, you'll see each individual each individual measure outlined. So how many are in the numerator and denominator, how many exceptions, and what the actual percentage is for each of the measures. So primary PCI less than or equal to 90, FMC equal to 90, aspirin aspirin discharge, beta blocker discharge, statin at discharge, ARB at discharge, and adult smoking cessation advice. When we get down to the plus measure, we see that there is 1319 with 4 exceptions at 68.4%. This particular hospital, when would know to do the next step that I'm going to show you in a minute and drill down a little bit further into this particular measure and see if there is any data, in particular this year, where there has been data transfer. Look at each individual patient and see if there is any incorrect data that came over in the transfer that can be corrected. So you'll need to pull the chart, or review the chart and the information that's in the tool side by side to make sure that everything is correct. Then you'll see at the bottom the overall Mission Lifeline composite score for this particular hospital is excellent and 97.0%. So this hospital, if they were an achievement award winner before, they would be likely going up unless they were a gold, and they would be maintaining a gold. But this hospital definitely qualifies based on this data for achievement award. Currently qualifies for the plus measure, but again, this is the time to review this data to see where any potential fixes or incorrect data or incorrect clicking, especially in the data transfer, can be done. Next step then, as I would run the same report annually, 2017, 2017, STEMI receiving measures, but instead of choosing the bar chart, I would choose patient records. Display options also gray out and are not applicable. Report, and then I have each of the measures that are shown patient. So this is just the top of this graph. Having somebody that is not on mute, if you would please double check that you are on mute. There are 287 patients that is total within the database. Within a particular measure, PCI less than or equal to 90. There are 57 patients of that two. Yep. Please make sure you're on mute. I think we just heard somebody. No. Somebody had a copier, maybe. Actually, I don't have the web moderator on, so I can't mute individual people today. With 230 patients excluded, 57 patients included, 53 patients are in the numerator for this, and 2 exceptions. How does it all break down? Well, we have a gap of 4 patients here with 2 excluded. So we first see all the included patients. There they all are. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit. We're going to take a different measure, but with the same process. We're just going to, as Katie said, click the in numerator. So we bring all of the no's to the top. I'll zoom in on this section now. And so bring all the no's to the top. And is this patient included in the results? No. Is there an exception? No. That means that this is a fallout, and this is included in the results. They're not in the numerator, and there is no exception, so this is a fallout. This particular patient is excluded and there are no, so they are not in the numerator, and they are an exception. So these two here are two exceptions that would have been included and would fallouts had there not been proper exceptions. So back here, we see 5 of 27 and 2 exceptions. So this will, the 5 of the 27, here's the 2 that are fallouts, and then the 2 exceptions. So when these 2 fallouts, then the next thing I want to do is, as Katie described earlier, click on the patient ID. That is a hot link that will take you right back to that particular patient, and you can review and see where the fallout might be. And I think I have an example here. I think I can show you possibly where this one fell out. So this is the FMC to primary PCI. First medical contact was 0640 in the morning, and PCI was greater than 120 minutes. That's okay. Let's see. We got the drill one and see what was going on. I didn't drill into these to see what the actual fallouts were for these. Arrival. Yeah, to be able to actually show you what's going on, I'd have to be able to click on the patients, and I can't do that. But when you see fallouts, that's where you want to drill in here and go in and check the data to see where corrections may need to be made. Okay, so before I move on to determining number of patients included, any questions there? Okay, on then to determining number of patients included, patient awards. So it's going to sound a little odd the way I want to start for this, but I believe this is the easiest way to run the number of patients included for both STEMI and NSTEMI. So you're going to choose annual 2017 NSTEMI measures and patient records. So we're on NSTEMI measures and patient records. And any of the measures that come up will be the same. So again, 287 total patients. There are, we're going to be looking at a couple of different things here. First, we're going to be looking at the STEMI patients. So we're not really necessarily looking at the same way we were before. The first thing we want to do is STEMI or NSTEMI. So we'll see STEMI or NSTEMI, and we bring all of our STEMIs, our yes to the top. The yeses for STEMI equivalent, the all yeses come to the top. We count those, and that's how many we evaluated for award for STEMIs. So just the yeses will be evaluated for STEMI. We send that same report, and we click this again to bring all the no's to the top. And then we click cardiac biomarkers and bring all the yeses to the top. So now all of these should show no, yes, no, yes. Anything that's no, yes is in the NSTEMI. So what that does is it excludes anything that was not a STEMI and was not positive for cardiac biomarkers. Those are not included in your STEMI or NSTEMI records. So I'll run that real quick again. You pull up your NSTEMI measures, patient records. You want to drill and bring your yeses to the top and count those for your STEMIs. And then you want to click again to bring all your no's to the top. Click positive cardiac biomarkers, bring all your yeses to the top. And no, yes, no, yeses all the way down. Those are your NSTEMIs. And obviously you'll have quite a few of those. There'll be a lot of NSTEMIs. You know, you'll have, depending on how many total patients, you know, you'll have 30, 40 if you're 287. Hopefully you're somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 total STEMIs, and then probably the rest of them, excluding any no's, will be STEMIs. Any on that? Okay, and please feel free to reach out to your local QSI directors. If you need any one-on-one time with any of this, they will help you, or they will ask your team, myself, or Jackie to join and help as well. Where I'm doing that. Okay, yes.
Now, just a quick comment. you can also export that to Excel and filter it, and so that makes it just a little quicker to filter to those options.
Great point. Thank you. Yep, we actually, Katie and I were playing around with that yesterday, and then that way you can drag your mouse down the line, and it's a lot quicker to count too, isn't it?
Yeah, and then on Excel, when you filter it, it'll give you the number that's filtered down at the bottom when you first do it anyway, right. So it's really quick.
Yep. I'm back up though, because Terry, I forgot to ask you if you could give us an example. How you ran through this with Katie and I the other day, and you've had a couple that were fallouts and what we had to do and what were the particular fallouts, if you can remember, around the ER. I don't remember what it was, but we fixed a couple of what looked to be fallouts, but actually were missing check marks, I think is what it ended up being within the tool. Is that all right?
For at least what we looked at, it had to do with a subsequent EMS EKG where there was 2 EKGs done by EMS, and the first one not showing STEMI, the second one showing STEMI. And while it didn't make a difference for their D2D time, it did make a difference in their first medical contact to open time when we selected the ES EKG that showed STEMI. So I have some little nuances. The other thing that, just taking a few minutes to look at it, was I had one that wasn't on my Get Guideline list, that was on my action list of door to balloon in 90 minutes, and I'm like, where did that go? And it had to do with one that got eliminated by action filters and definitions that were slightly different than just the guideline definition that was slightly different than the action definition. And it went something like this. Patient is admitted with no ST elevation on 2 EKGs, and they're admitted as an inpatient, and 23 hours and 56 minutes later, as a result of some chest pain, they have an EKG that shows STEMI. I still included them because they were within 24 hours by 4 minutes. Guidelines eliminated them because they were over 12 hours. Gary, I think I heard you say, too, that they were in inpatient status.
Yeah, inpatient, right?
Yes. Just kind of looking at your numbers, just like you do, or looking at your records and pulling those individual measures and looking at them, for me it's taking a little bit getting used to maybe just a few little things that are different, and learning a little bit, and then trying to figure out what those differences are, and making sure that those subsequent EKGs are properly collected or noted to be the documentation when that happens. And that was one of them. And then the other one was one of the cases disappearing with the guidelines list. That was on the other list.
And your experience, and it didn't take us too long to figure those out. It was just a matter of drilling down a little bit. So thanks a lot for sharing that.
I would notice when you have first medical contact intervention, depending on if you pick air or you pick ambulance, it either throws it out and says it's not what word is now. I'm losing my words. So one, it would take it and say that you met your qualifications, and the next way would say that it, oh crap, what is the word?
It was a fallout or not a fallout, basically, right?
Excluded, right. So you know what the difference is? That something that's just built wrong, or is it something you necessarily do look at?
So I want to make sure I understand the setup. If the first medical contact was an air ambulance, is that, I want to make, I think that's part of the confusion, that you're saying our particular spot, I think, that you're talking about is what is the transferring agency.
Right.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that it incorrectly calculates first medical contact if a helicopter is chosen as the transferring agency. It should not include that at all, because it'd be looking at either the door time or the first ambulance who picked the patient up and transported to the first hospital's FMC time. So I would want to dig into that a little bit more and see pulling that particular way. I've not heard have heard that before. Is anyone else experiencing that where transferring agency error is calculating first medical contact? My voice. So I'm not sure if you're one of the hospitals that I deal with regularly. Who is your who is your QSI director?
It's Robin.
Okay, Robin and I can get together and take a look at that and help you out. So just get a hold of Robin and we'll take a look at that one-on-one and see what's going on.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just expect to run these reports to see if we qualify for medals, or are you just saying that you can just see how you sit, and then your actually resource officer will be the one running these reports?
I would suggest that all hospitals do this. Your QSI director, Robin, will be doing this as well. But we would suggest that all hospitals in particular, so it will be an automated process after this year, but use reports to verify that you are will qualify for award. That is a key feature of the reports, and running that, I would suggest running this by quarter. Hopefully we get to the point where we will, typically what we do with our other programs is that QSI directors will run these reports and take a look at them by quarter or in the third quarter, so right before awards are going to be coming, and say, hey, to look at what you've uploaded from last year, you've got a couple of fallouts, it looks like. So QSI directors will be doing that as well. We typically, that's one of the things that we do, is run those reports and then send them to you via email and have you take a look. But I suggest that all hospitals do what I've just showed here today, just to stay on top of it and catch any fallouts early. So CAD does have the ability to validate measures as you enter a patient. That's another good way to measure validation. There's the Measures tab, and that can do a lot of corrections there. But as you see, in particular, with the data transfer from ACT, there are some things that may need to be corrected. So I do suggest that you do that.
Okay, you can, but you don't have to send them to anyone.
Could be anyone, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Good point. Thanks. Okay, this is kind of the last page, and I want to make sure if there's any other questions, we can get those answered in general. One thing that we hear from time to time, these are some of our frequently asked questions that we hear from time to time. Door to EKG explanation. Right now, if you run door to EKG, you have to run that from the referring center report. So within the reports, there's the receiving center reports and the referring center reports. The EKG is incorrectly labeled referring hospital, but the calculation is receiving hospital. So if you run that measure, that will be, if you're hospital XYZ, that will be your door to EKG times, not your transferring hospital's times. But look at it, you'll assume that that's your transferring hospital's times, but it is actually yours. There is only one time in the current configuration of CAD door to EKG time entered. So that's your particular door time. So you'll need to run that in the STEMI referring measures, so not receiving measures selection. You run it, you can run a all measures report, and it will show up there. And again, those are the receiving hospital's times. Regional report permissions. When all of you had signed up for Get With The Guidelines CAD initially, you were to check whether you want your data included in regional mission lifeline reports and whether you wanted that to be blinded or unblinded. There was a unfortunate programming of that form, and so it was not a required field. So there were a number of hospitals that did not select anything there, did not select yes or no. We completely respect your choice to not be included in regional reports, but with no choice, we can't include you if you want to be. So soon, you'll be getting some sort of form. We're trying to make it as easy as possible. If no choice was made, we will have a process for to make a selection whether you want your data included in any regional reports in your area. So just be on the lookout for that from your QSI directors. Ongoing uploads and vendors, in particular Lumetics Apollo. Katie had described that earlier. You may see this in some of the other vendors, that if you only use your vendor's tool for data collection and you do not go into NCDR, you may not be able to access the raw data the way that is described in the historic data upload. You may first have to contact your vendor and ask for the raw data file option to be turned on, and we know that's particularly true in Lumetics Apollo. You need to call them and ask for that to be turned on. No additional cost for that. It's just a flip a switch, turn that on so that you can download those two files that Katie described and do the historic data upload. This ongoing uploads, that's been a question that we've been asked several times. Will there be an option at some point other than the CSV file to do ongoing or quarterly uploads? Same way the historic data upload works. The best we can share at this time is that there looks to be an option going to be available, hopefully. Still working through what that will be and how many times it will be available and the cost for that. So stay tuned, but we are working diligently on a solution there, and I think we'll have one. Final thing, we get this all the time with Mission Lifeline in general, to review FMC to balloon, door to balloon, and transfers, so those times, and just quickly review the differences. We get this a lot. Why is there an FMC to device time of less than or equal to 90 and a door time of less than or equal to 90? Why are those the same? Shouldn't we get more time if the patient is transported by ambulance? So no, you are dealing with more time. You know, if the clock starts when the ambulance picks up the patient to get to the cath lab, that's more time than if the patient just walks into your ER. So why are you held to the same standard? Well, I would look at it this way. Your system is held to the same standard, and your system includes your ambulance service that brings you patients. Your system is held to the same standard whether that patient walks in your door or the ambulance picks them up. And the key for that is EMS agencies need to be identifying these patients prior to arrival and notifying you prior to bringing them to your door. If that's not what's happening, then that is something that needs to be worked on within your system. But that is a key component of Mission Lifeline, is that your system, your 1 ambulance service or your 10 ambulance services and your hospital are held to the same standard whether the patient walks in the door or whether the patient is brought in by ambulance because of identification and pre-notification. Finally, transfers of greater than 100, you get 120 minutes if that patient is transferred from a facility. So basically, you get an extra 30 minutes if that patient is a transfer patient, and that's the difference in time there. So is FMC or door to balloon less than or equal to 120 minutes when that patient first goes through another facility. We have some exceptions coming for long distance transfers that will help some of these, and particularly in our rural states, where the patients are coming from a long distance, but everyone has done the right thing and bypassed the local hospital and has come straight to PCI, but they're being held to the 90 minutes. So if the transfer time, the actual transport of the patient in an ambulance is greater than 35 minutes, then that can be an exclusion. On our next call, we'll go over that a little bit more and give you, there's a little bit more ins and outs to that, but I didn't want to get too deep into that today. But that's something that we have added in particular for our rural and super rural or frontier state areas where there's some exceptions now based on long transport by ambulance. 1 minute over. I didn't leave much time for any additional questions. I will stay on if there is any, and so I'm sure we'll the QSI directors that can. Joining us for this call today, your next one, forgot to change that date, I apologize. Your next call will be, the 3rd of April. So we'll get that information out and get that to your local directors. Are there any questions before we close out today? Thank you all for joining. I appreciate everyone joining today, and we will follow up with more information next month. Thank you.